The Lion King Sega game. There are so many creepypastas out there about haunted video games and things of that nature. I've read them and always just passed them off as just that fake, stupid creepypasta stories, though they were very entertaining. I never expected something similar to happen to me. It seems like the worst things always tend to happen to those most unsuspecting and cynical, doesn't it? Well, I was at a time of disappointment in my life. I had become very ill and forced to drop out of college. I hated having my dreams put on hold, and I had been suffering from a mild case of depression because of it. But there was still a comfort that can only come from being back home that reassured me a bit. But there was still the boredom I had to deal with. No job, no college, and I hate to say it, but little friends, most still in college themselves, made each day drag by. The days spent watching TV and old VHS movies in that familiar living room gave me some inspiration to find a way to ease my ever-increasing tedium. My VHS and DVD library had dwindled down to only my old, worn-out Disney movies left unwatched, so I decided to watch one of my all-time favorites, The Lion King. The colorful, cute lion cubs reminded me of an almost forgotten piece of my past. It was the old 1994 Lion King PC video game I used to play constantly as a child. My mom and I used to spend hours trying to win that old game. The flood of old memories sent me walking to my old bedroom, to the ancient computer that still sat on a desk in the corner. I'd been so proud of that old computer when I first bought it. The bulky old compact Presario groaned to life, and I clicked the start button to search for my old games. Sadly, the game folder was barren and empty. Disappointed, I walked in to ask my mom what happened to all our games. She looked a little sad, probably seeing the dissatisfaction in my eyes. She told me since I had purchased a brand new laptop a month or so ago, my dad was going to sell the old computer. He had taken all the old games and documents and removed them. She then suggested I asked my dad if he'd saved any of them. Later that night, my dad returned from his job at the factory, tired and worn. He flopped on the couch to do what he did to relax, look up stuff on his laptop. So I walked over and asked him what the fate of my childhood memories had been. He regretted to say that he didn't think I would care about them anymore, and had deleted them. I was clearly saddened by that. I had been really looking forward to skydiving into an ocean of nostalgia, hating to see his little girl, all 19 years of her. Upset, he said he'd go online and try to download as many of the old games as he could from freeware sites and things of that nature. Gladly, my dad did find and download the 1994 Lion King Sega game, my old favorite. Now, this game isn't like the modern Disney games out there. It wasn't a babyish activity center or storybook game. It was a story, yes, but it was an action game. The gist of it was that you started out as young Simba as he defeats innocent villains and animals such as chameleons, porcupines, frogs, spiders, vultures, and the harder villains, hyenas. Young Simba could defeat these adversaries by simply jumping on them, except the porcupines. You had to growl to flip them over, then jump on them. Older Simba was oddly more violent. He could slash, maul, and flip his enemies, some of them even showing small amounts of blood flying from them with each hit. Nothing gory, and you could never see any injuries on his enemies. But at the age of 4, that seemed like major carnage. The next morning, I was glad to have the whole house to myself to play the game again. My dad was at work, and my mom was off to Lexington, Kentucky, to help my almost 80-year-old grandma. It was times like this that it pays to have no siblings. So I grabbed a bowl of M&Ms and some sweet tea and retreated to my room for the day. My dad had installed the game into the bulky old grey and black computer the night before, but hadn't seen if it had worked or not. I prayed it did as I clicked on the file. It worked to my delight, and when I saw the grainy startup screen, a picture of Pride Rock with Rafiki holding up baby Simba, I pressed enter to start the game. Timon appeared on the screen and said the old familiar words. It starts. I worked my way through the colorful levels with ease. I remembered every trick and bonus. Everything went well, and I was having good old-fashioned fun like I used to as a little kid. I made it to the last level, the Pride Rock level, where adult Simba battles Scar. I made it halfway through the level, battling Scar 2 of the 3 times, and killing off hyena after hyena. I was having a perfect game until I made one mistake. I misjudged a jump and missed the platform I was aiming for, sending Simba plunging into the darkness in between. That's when things started to go wrong. Instead of just fading to black and starting the level over like it was supposed to, the screen began flashing random colors, mainly red, black, and purple, and a sound that isn't supposed to be in the game. I should know, I've played it hundreds of times and memorized every part of it. The sound was from the movie. It was from the infamous stampede scene when Mufasa fell to his doom. It was Simba's scream, "No!" Then there was a screeching sound so loud I jumped and turned down my speakers. I figured that this was just a hacked version of the game, and someone thought it would make the game better to add sound clips from the movie. But then, instead of returning to the level I was on, the game restarted from the beginning. That made me annoyed since I'd gotten so far. But then the startup screen changed. Instead of the cheery screen I remembered from my childhood, or from 2 seconds ago for that matter, it was dark, blurry and odd-colored, red, black and blue. It almost looked like a night shot of the original screen. But I thought it might just be a glitch, and pressed start anyway. Instead of Timon saying his normal phrase, there was a strip of red writing which seemed to flash and twist on the screen. It said a quote that I recognized and actually loved. "The boundaries which divide life from death are at best shadowy and vague. Who shall say where the one ends and the other begins?" A quote from my favorite author, Edgar Allan Poe. I was actually a little happy to see my favorite quote, but couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. Why was it on a Disney game, and I knew for sure it didn't belong there? But I played anyway. The first level was all wrong. First off, I had no lives left when I should have had 8. And the sky was pitch black. The first level was usually a cheery, sunny level. Worst of all, young cub Simba was lying down in an unnatural, crumpled position. He was bloody and shaking. This wasn't the Disney norm at all. For the heck of it, I tried to move him with the arrow keys, and he reached his arm out slowly and dragged himself along the ground, leaving a trail of crimson blood behind him like a slug leaves a trail of slime. The progression was slow, but the crisp autumn weather outside made me excited for Halloween, so I decided to try and play this disturbed version of my favorite game. When I needed to jump, the half-dead lion cub jumped almost like normal, except each jump he lost a body part. The bloody part of him fell into the crevice he was jumping. Each jump made our crumpled hero bloodier and bloodier. At the end of the level, the hyena was different too. His eyes glowed red, and he looked as if he'd been slashed multiple times. I defeated him with 2 jumps, just in time as Simba's last leg fell off. I wondered what awaited me on the next level as the first one faded to black. The "I can't wait to be king" level was upside down and seemed to be melting on the screen, as well as being darker colored than it should. Simba was back to the original state. He was on the first disturbed level. He dragged along as he made his way to the rhino. He jumped on the rhino's head, his tail falling off along the way, and the rhino flipped him up into the trees, into the arms of the monkeys. This is the part when Simba was supposed to jump on the heads of giraffes over water to the other side. But there was a problem. The giraffes were beheaded, bloodily, with amazingly, disgustingly detailed. I could see the bones sticking out. I thought, whoever hacked this game had even more of a dark side than me. But I wondered how battered Simba could get across the water, which was in this version red blood. But he jumped from giraffe to giraffe by clinging to the necks. The blood made him slip off quickly, so I had to jump quicker and quicker to keep from falling in the water. Later in the level, the ostrich he is supposed to ride was beheaded and skinned with frightening realism. It looked more like a photo I had seen taken at fur farms of dead animals. The ostrich lurched in an odd, distorted way as it ran. The rest of the level was about the same. The monkeys beheaded and the tree on fire, and Simba crawled through the upside-down madness. As that level faded, the screeching sound returned, as well as something completely unexpected. It was Mufasa's face, but instead of the gold color he should be, he was black, and his eyes glowed green. He opened his mouth and said in a hissing voice, "Scar is innocent." It was me. What did that mean? Was this twisted game trying to pass off that Mufasa was supposed to have let go of the cliff on purpose? I don't know why, but I was disturbed by that thought. Don't be stupid. I thought, don't let a stupid game make you upset about fictional cartoon lions. Despite the nervousness I was experiencing, I continued to the elephant graveyard level. This one was right side up, thank goodness, and Simba was surprisingly normal, standing up straight like he's supposed to. Maybe the hacker got bored and decided to leave this level alone. My thoughts were proven wrong as soon as I thought them. The elephant graveyard was strangely devoid of life. No hyenas came to attack me, like they were supposed to. I just thought of that as an easy out, and began to run through the game. As I moved, I realized it wasn't going to be that easy. My scream ripped loudly through the speakers and the monitor. Not just the screen, but the whole monitor shook. That freaked me out, but I figured it was probably just vibrating from the loudness of the screams. Anyway, I had a new thing to worry about. The ground was literally crumbling under Simba's feet. I had to keep running through the desolate graveyard to keep from falling into the unknown black below me. As I ran, I noticed that the spots that were supposed to have hyenas instead had bloody-skinned corpses instead, and the same hissing voice of Mufasa I heard before sounded as I passed each one. "Death is cruel to the just and the unjust." He repeated it over and over as a scream built up louder and louder behind it. Then the whole monitor started shaking again, more and more violently. Then very realistic blood started dripping down the screen. So realistic, I was tempted to reach out and touch it. I indulged in my temptation and was petrified as my finger became covered in sticky crimson blood. As can be expected, I screamed and ran from the room. I ran into the bathroom and slammed the door shut. My hands were trembling as I reached for the light switch. I half expected that distorted Mufasa face to be in front of me as I flipped on the light. Of course it wasn't, so I just sat down and curled into a ball. I suddenly hated being alone. I yearned for my parents to come home. It didn't help that I could still hear that scream from the other room. My room, where I had to sleep. As frightened as I was, I decided I had to go back and turn off that game. So I mustered up whatever courage was left in me and walked slowly back into the room. I was almost afraid to turn and look at the computer in the dark corner of the room. But when I did, I saw the blood was gone. Maybe I had just let the disturbing game get to my head, and I'd hallucinated the blood. I mean, it was just a game, right? Weirder still is that the game had paused on its own, as if it had known that I had fled the room. Maybe in my panic, I had hit the enter button on the keyboard and just hadn't known it, but I sure didn't remember it. That thought was proven false as soon as my bottom made contact with the seat, for as soon as I sat down, the game started up. The screaming, thankfully, stopped for the time being, and curiosity was urging me to keep going. I knew my dad would take away the defective game off as soon as he heard about it, so this was my only chance to see what happened next, so I kept going. I finished the crumbling elephant graveyard level and prepared for the stampede level, and whatever dark twist was next. But to my surprise, everything was normal in this level. The sky was blue and the rocky canyon was a bright tan, just as I remembered it. Half of me was thankful, and the other half, the darker half I hide from most people, was bored. It was at the end of the level that things changed. After Simba escaped the wildebeests, the screen cut to MLG Banter Black, abruptly, and then continued to play a scene from the movie. Well, sort of. It was the scene where Mufasa was climbing up the rocks after saving Simba from the stampede, but then something different happened. It cut to Simba staring at his dad struggling to climb up the canyon. This scene wasn't in the movie, though. It was animated in just as good quality as the real movie. Simba was crying, as if he knew his dad wasn't going to make it, sobbing realistically. He then stopped suddenly and turned his face toward the screen. His eyes were empty, emotionless, as he stared at me. Then he stood up and walked forward. The camera angle switched to behind him and revealed what he was walking to, the edge, the cliff. What is this? I could only watch in horror as he just walked off the cliff, to the stampede below. Then the screen cut to Mufasa's face. He saw it. He saw Simba fall to his death. His eyes were filled with tears and he looked up at his brother, Scar, grinning down at him. "What are you going to do, brother?" Scar asked menacingly, his eyes glowing an odd red and his paws dripping with blood. "What have you to live for?" "Nothing," Mufasa answered, then turned his face to the screen. "No one does." Then he let go of the cliff and fell. Then it showed Scar laughing, his face slowly morphing into a hideous skull, pieces of flesh clinging to it. His eyes started to drip blood as the screen faded black around the skull. Then he whispered, "It's true for you too, Heather," then chuckled and disappeared. Once again I found myself running from the room, this time in hysterics. If I thought I was trembling before then, this was my own personal earthquake. In the bathroom, I ended up vomiting into the toilet. Then I just sat there whispering, "It's not real, it's not real." Tears ran down my face like the blood had from Scar's. How did that game just say my name? That's not normal, not right, but I was the adult in this house at the time. It was up to me to go back into that room and turn that demonic game off. Immediately. So I stomped into my bedroom angrily. I will not let a game control me. I glared toward the screen and noticed that Scar was gone. It was sitting there on the Simba's exile level, very normal looking. It even had the appropriate sound for the game. Once again, curiosity got the better of me, and I dismissed the movie clip as my imagination getting the better of me. So I continued to play the level. I was stupid. I know that now. But I wasn't one to get freaked out that easily over things like that. I was the type who craves scary things, loved them. So I played the game with a cautious but curious attitude. I was just waiting for something else strange to happen, not hoping for it like before, more like watching a video online and waiting for the screamer. The level was perfectly normal. Whoever hacked this game had a twisted sense of humor, I thought warily, lulling you into a false sense of security, then freaking you out in a whole new way. I knew it was coming, but I still jumped when it happened. The Simba's exile level ended normally as the hyenas watched Simba escape through the thorns, yelling, "If you ever come back, we'll kill you." But then it happened, something freaky. The Hakuna Matata level started, but Simba couldn't move. It was like the game was locked up, except he was moving. Not running like I wanted him to, but shaking his head over and over and over again, as if he was trying to shake the bad thoughts from his head. Then suddenly, he looked straight ahead, then fell to the ground, like he passed out. Only his eyes rolled out of his head and across the green jungle grass. Then the image twisted in on itself and faded to black. Then abruptly, it switched directly to the next level, skipping Hakuna Matata completely. It would only seem fitting that a game as dark as this skip the happiest level. So now Simba is an adult. This was the level representing him going at night to see Rafiki. As an adult, he had his new powers of slashing and mauling. I mentioned before the brief, mild violence that normally was in the adult Simba levels. Well, this was much, much worse. When Simba mauled a leopard, the leopard was ripped to pieces, and its body was left in a bloody mess, in pieces piled on top of each other. Each one he killed off was murdered in the same merciless, violent way. I should have known something like that was coming. Then at the end, when he found Rafiki at the pool of water, and Mufasa appeared in the sky, Simba started shaking, not randomly, but in a pattern, and sobbed sounded in beat to the shakes. Then Mufasa reached down and opened his mouth wide, and Simba just walked in and disappeared. Rafiki then looked into the screen and whispered, "The circle of life is a lie. All die, all perish. Your time is drawing nearer." At least he didn't say my name again. That was a relief. The game skipped 2 whole levels, and I found myself at the start of the last level, Pride Rock. It seemed normal until I moved Simba forward. Instead of immediately fighting Scar as he is supposed to, he just ran through an empty level. No hyenas, no fire, no Scar. It was like this until I got to the very top of Pride Rock, where Simba and Scar are supposed to have their final battle. I was shocked at who was waiting at the top. Mufasa? He didn't even have a character in the game. I wondered for a second if I was supposed to fight him. He was Simba's father, after all. But Mufasa leapt onto Simba and began to maul him violently, ripping off Simba's right foreleg. He flung the leg off of Pride Rock. I moved Simba, and he hobbled to his dad and jumped, mauling him as well. The battle was pretty even, Mufasa and Simba ripping off piece after piece of each other. After about 10 minutes of fighting, I lost control of them. Nothing I did affected the fight. They were fighting on their own now. Suddenly Simba jumped onto his father, causing them both to somersault off the edge of Pride Rock, to their doom. Then the screen flashed several times, the scream returned, and the screen switched to a very realistic picture of Mufasa and Simba's mangled bodies lying in a heap under Pride Rock. Then the screen twisted on itself again, and Scar's skull appeared in front of the picture. I screamed when the skull spoke. "Heather, Satan lives in the depths of each good soul. You can't escape him. You can't fight him. Give up before he tears you apart." Then the screen flashed and showed a new picture. It was me, sitting in front of the screen. Then the computer went black and shut off. As much as I tried, the computer wouldn't turn on again. I still can't get it to turn on. Every night I see those images, I hear those words, "Give up before he tears you apart." Sometimes in the middle of the night I look at the computer, and that skull is there on the screen. I can feel something in my house now. It's present. My mother and father can't feel it. Their innocence hasn't been taken from them as mine has. This is why I'm writing this. My dreams have turned to nightmares. My sweet memories. into traumatizing ones. Nothing is left of me anymore, and I'm going to take Scar's advice. These are my last words, and I feel compelled to ask you, what are you going to do? What do you have to live for? Winnie the Pooh, lost episode. I was meaning to talk about this experience I had about when I was 5 years old. Winnie the Pooh has been a big favorite of mine. However, this DVD caused me to stop watching the show. I never knew that an innocent, fluffy teddy bear video cover could be so twisted on the DVD beneath it. It was after my 5th birthday that I received it. It was from my friend Bertha. She knew I loved Pooh and all of his friends, in their adventures together, not always all at once, but they had some adventures involving every friend of his. Anyway, when I put the DVD into the player, I saw that the title screen was normal. Winnie the Pooh was in the picture, along with Piglet, and then I started the episode on the DVD. The Pooh video started with Pooh Bear sleeping under his thinking tree happily. However, Winnie the Pooh suddenly woke up to see Tigger hunching over him. "Hey there, Pooh Bear," said Tigger. "Listen, I need your help." "Why?" asked Pooh. "Kanga is not feeling well," said Tigger. "She's moaning some weird words that I've never heard her say before." Pooh and Tigger then got up and ran. The scene then changed to Kanga's house, and 2 seconds after that, it showed Pooh and Tigger entering the house. "Kanga," said Pooh, "are you okay?" "Pooh Bear," said Kanga. She started saying these weird words in a voice that didn't sound like mine. "What were those words, Kanga?" asked Pooh. "I don't know," said Kanga. Kanga then stopped talking for a minute, and the she spoke in a deep, distorted voice. "You are a very stupid bear," said Kanga. "I wanted you dead for years, and now goodbye, loser." Pooh saw tentacles come from behind Kanga's face. She turned slowly towards the viewer. Her eyes were blood red, and tentacles were coming out of her mouth. I watched in horror as the tentacles grabbed Pooh and dragged him towards her. Tigger came back in with an axe, looking more angry than usual. "Let Pooh go," said Tigger. And with that, Tigger charged, and with one swing of his axe, he chopped Kanga's head, and Pooh was released. Pooh then unwrapped his leg, which was cut open, exposing some of Pooh's stuffing. Later that night, Tigger buried Kanga's corpse in a gravesite, and then, after 12 seconds, the video ended, and the credits rolled. "Well," I said, "at least Pooh and Tigger survived." I went to sleep that night and dreamed of Kanga in her normal way, but I was still badly scarred from that video. So if your friend gives you a DVD with a blank disc cover, then tell your parents to watch it first before you watch it, so you won't be disturbed. Teletubbies, lost episode. Now, I know what you're thinking. What is Teletubbies? Well, it's a TV show for babies and young kids, about 4 Teletubbies who like to have fun. Well, this episode is what I'm talking about. I was watching The Spectacular Spider-Man on Disney Plus when I heard a knock at my door. I opened the door to see who was there. It was a package. "Okay," I said. I opened the package and never lost sight of what I saw. It was a DVD case. It was called Teletubbies, Seesaw and Other Stories. The cover consisted of the Teletubbies in a red background. It has the BBC video logo, the DVD video logo, and the ABC for Kids logo. However, there was no BBFCG rating. This made me confused. Weird. Aren't these episodes usually rated TVY? I asked myself. I also looked at the back of it. The DVD somehow contained 6 episodes. The episodes were Seesaw, Yellow Cow, Mum's Keyboard, Shadows, Bubbles, and Creepypastas. All of the episodes were great, but I thought to myself, Creepypastas? That's strange. Creepypastas wasn't born until the internet was made and expanded. I opened the DVD case, and inside there was a note that read in an old red pen, "We tried to hide this disc. If you found this, it's too late." I kind of felt suspicious about that note. Does this mean anything related to the episode I'm about to watch has to do with this? I went to the living room, popped the disc into the DVD player, and went to find out. The DVD started with the usual BBC warning screen, the BBC video ident, the ABC DVD ident, and the ABC for Kids ident. The DVD menu then appeared. The menu has the Teletubbies having a big hug in a green background. The options were Play All, Episode Selection, ABC Web Link, and Subtitles. I pressed Play All. The first 5 episodes were great, but the last one was going to be really crazy. The intro began, but a couple things were off. Firstly, the sky was red instead of the usual blue sky. Secondly, the Teletubbies logo's font was in Creepster and not the usual Freuder font. And thirdly, when the voice trumpet showed up at the end of the intro, instead of saying, "Where have the Teletubbies gone?" it instead said this: 5 creepypastas are visiting Teletubbyland. The episode started. Poe walked to the screen. He said the usual "eh-oh." One day in Teletubbyland, the narrator narrated. Poe was wondering why the sky is red. Huh? Poe wondered as 5 figures are standing in front of him. Those figures were CO.AG, Ben Drowned, Zalgo, Slender Man, and Bootleg SpongeBob. "Hello, little creature." CO.AG said to Poe. Just then, the magic windmill began to spin, and it was time for the TV event. Poe said, "Uh-oh," in a sorta happy tone and ran away. Then Ben asked her, "Where are you going?" The Teletubbies gathered for a TV event, and Tinky Winky was chosen for the TV event. The TV event showed 2 16-year-old boys named Nathan and Joey, who were watching something on their phone. It had a strange audio with a demonic voice saying to, "They leave now." The 2 teenagers looked to the screen and the TV event end, and the Teletubbies were rather confused instead of happy. Then the second half of the episode started to play, with a shot of the creepypasta squad in front of the house. It looks like they were up to something. One day in Teletubbyland, the creepypasta squad was having a meeting outside of... The narrator said. "Shut up, human," CO.AG yelled at the narrator abruptly. "We know we're having a meeting." "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll be over here," the narrator responded in a sad tone. "Now we have Prepare the Terrible Fate," Ben Drowned said. "When we're done with them, we're gonna take over this place and nothing will stop us," Zalgo said. "But do we have to kill them? Without them, the takeover will be more easier." Bootleg SpongeBob said, "We have to. It's the only way." CO.AG said. Slender Man shouted, "Ayo!" the Teletubbies said, when they just overheard their talking. "Okay, let's end these babies once and for all," CO.AG said, as he called the members to attack. They all got their weapons. Ben Drowned got his corruption power ready. CO.AG activated the maximum of his power. Zalgo summoned his powers. Bootleg SpongeBob activated his corruption, and Slender Man got his tentacles ready. The Teletubbies ran away, panting in fear, until Lala tripped over, straining her knee. Zalgo then blasted Lala with a laser-type black magic, making her explode to her demise. The 3 Teletubbies scream in fear that they just saw. Those screams aren't in cartoony way. It sounds like the actors of the Teletubbies have just seen one of their family member had been murdered. Dipsy, Tinky Winky and Poe ran away from the creepypasta squad and decided to hide behind a hill. They took a breath, knowing that they were safe, until Slender Man and his tentacles came in and rushed towards them. They ran away again, except for Dipsy, who ran towards Slender Man, wanting to have a big hug to it. However, Dipsy got perforated in the chest and died of the Slender Man's attack. Tinky Winky and Poe cried for Dipsy's death, until Ben Drowned appeared in front of them and disfigured Poe with his corruption, killing her instantly. Sonic.exe and the rest of the squad then came up to Tinky Winky, meeting his fate. "What a shame you will be the last soul till we play. Do you agree?" he said. Tinky Winky said, "Uh-oh," crying. "Well, the game's over," Sonic said. Then Sonic decapitated Tinky Winky with his power. Then he died. The Creepypasta squad laughed, and that laugh I will remember every day. It then cuts to the Sun Baby. She gets corrupted by the Creepypastas. She was laughing anyway after the Teletubbies' death. I soon saw the Tubby bye-bye scene after, but after the voice trumpet rose, instead of saying, "Time for Tubby bye-bye," he instead said poorly in a sad voice, "The Teletubbies are dead, and the Creepypasta squad will obliterate all the Teletubby land creatures, so time for the last Tubby bye-bye." Suddenly, when the end credits started to play, it then cut to the Creepypasta squad. "They shouldn't have done that," Ben Drowned said, when he started laughing. "Let's get out of here. We need corrupt more worlds," Bootleg SpongeBob proclaimed. "The Teletubby land takeover is done," Sonic.exe said, as he already opened a portal sending them away. The Sun Baby was still laughing as she began to set. Then the Ragdoll and BBC logos played, but it was off. The whole logo was red, the Ragdoll face had a demonic mouth, and the year is 6666, instead of MM and in Zalgo text. The ABC DVD logo played, but it was red-tinted, and it was played in a scary tone. The ABC for Kids logo played, but the sky was grey, and it had distorted music playing, as the bee made the usual ABC Lysageuse curve. It then cut to black. Before I hit the eject button, it showed one last thing. It was a message in Arial, saying created by Ted Morgan and James R. Wilburton. It then took me to the DVD menu, and at the same time my grandpa came in. I showed him the footage, and he believed me. I captured some of the footage before putting back in its case. Instead of burning the DVD, my grandpa told me to sell it to eBay. I managed to sell it for $6.66. I still have fear of someone buy it. The episode was weird and straight up messed up. If you see a Teletubbies DVD with a lost episode, avoid it at all costs. Cinderella. Once upon a time there lived 3 sisters, but only one was a maid, Cinderella. She was a nice young lady with a clean heart, but the sisters treated her badly, and they were taunting her for going to the ball, and how she would never go to the dance. This broke Cinderella's heart. The sister's mother told her that Cinderella won't be coming to the ball, and thus made Cinderella cry, as the family went to go to the ball. Cinderella cried out loud, and a fairy godmother came to help. She turned somebody into a horse, and a pumpkin into a carriage. But Cinderella must come back before the clock strikes midnight. Once Cinderella arrived to the ball, the sisters and their mother didn't recognize her, as if she was super beautiful. Cinderella got to dance with the prince, and she loved it. The prince and Cinderella got to know each other very much more, until the clock struck midnight. Cinderella got so worried she had left her shoe in the stairs. She didn't care, and she went back home. Cinderella returned to her home, and so did her sisters and mother. Cinderella pretended nothing had ever happened, and her sisters and mother believed her. Meanwhile, the prince was looking where she had gone. After everyone had looked and searched hard enough, they heard Cinderella's singing and rushed to her home. They explained if somebody could fit their feet in this shoe, they would become the wife of the prince. The sisters tried it on. One of them had long toes and could not fit her feet, so the mother grabbed a knife and told the sister to cut off her toes. She said, "When you're queen, you'll never need to go anywhere on foot." The sister then cut them off, and the prince took her away, only to find out that the sister's feet were gushing with blood. The prince sent the sister back and gave the shoe to the second sister. The second sister could get her toes in, but not her heel. Again, the mother told her to cut her heel, saying the exact same thing as before. The prince got tricked again and sent the second sister back. Now they called out Cinderella, and her feet could fit her shoe, and they lived happily ever after. If you appreciate my work, subscribe and press the bell. Comment what should I read next and share this video. This is very important for me. In the meantime, we'll hear from each other again soon.